Well, I saw the sequel to The Shining, Doctor Sleep. Now, sequel. What do you mean? Do you mean to the novel? There was a Doctor Sleep novel, so it's an adaptation of the novel that is a sequel to Stephen King's story. But of course, Stanley Kubrick's film dominates the story overall. It's just seen as one of the great horror classics of all time, and it's a very fascinating and well done film. And it's just, it's the intricacies and elements of a Kubrick film full on display in The Shining. But of course, famously, Stephen King hated it because he deviates for quite a bit from what his original story entailed. Now, there's a lot of things about some of the choices Kubrick made to leave it ambiguous as to whether or not this story was really a supernatural horror story. I don't see how you separate the two based on what's there. There's different theories about who exactly is the viewpoint for this. Is it Jack Torrance? Is it Wendy? Or is it Danny, the boy? And is it a combination of the three? But nevertheless, all three seem to be witness to the supernatural. If it's Jack Torrance, well, look what happens to him. Look what becomes of it. He's not fully understanding it all, but nevertheless, he certainly experiences the ghosts and whatnot firsthand. Is it Wendy? Because eventually she does see towards the end there all the mysterious hauntings and whatnot. And of course, Danny, Danny is special. It's his, from the book, The Shining, what's that about? Well, it's his psychic abilities coming through. And of course, Halloran is the character that becomes something of a mentor, here, because he's the same way and all that. All of those elements survive into the Kubrick film, but you can argue some of that and some of the framing of shots and whatnot. It's a fascinating thing to do, and it adds more layers to it to go in, and you can develop one's own approach to it, should you so desire. But nevertheless, that's how it played out there, where it's very different. So the sequel comes in this. What do? Do you make a sequel to Stephen King's TV miniseries on The Shining, which is just god-awful? No one likes it. So the approach here was to lean heavy. Obviously, there's no question in here about the supernatural. Dr. Sleep, it's interesting that it's called Dr. Sleep, because the feeling I got from the film was this is more akin to a superhero story, damn near, than a horror movie, certainly within the context of the original film. But it borrows heavily from those aesthetics and posits itself as a sequel to it. There's flashbacks. Of course, all the characters are recast from that. The adult Danny is Ewan McGregor, of course, but flashbacks to the childhood. So you have another Danny from that era, another Wendy, and eventually, yes, you do see Jack Torrance still in the Overlook. So, of course, the Overlook and the visuals of it is too powerful to ignore, and it becomes a pivotal plot point that actually works for what they're doing in it. And it's like all the while I said, oh, he's gonna have to go back to the Overlook for this story. But it explores more of what is introduced about these people who have these overt psychic powers, if you will. That's the only way to look at it, is like superpowers. It's, and it's sort of like a dark X-Men tale in that. And so Danny after the trauma of what happened there. He does reveal there's another trauma that happened to him as a result of these powers beyond what happened to his father at the Overlook and everything. But and at first I was wondering, are they going to go with the novel's ending, rather than what the movie did? And no, it's going with what the movie did. And of course, the aesthetics of the Overlook, as depicted in Kubrick's film, is all there. And of course, eventually, the payoff is to get back there through this. So it explores the people who had these abilities and the dangers therein, and what happens when these powers are abused and that sort of. I'm not going to spoil the entirety of the plot, but there's some cool visuals all along through it. And you have some interesting little scenes here as Danny's dealing with where this has led him, and he finds a place, and there's a struggle there for him. There is, of course, a special girl who's the key to it all. But it's a means by which they could have just used Danny as a way for how the conflict happens and unfolds here. But yeah, they had this girl. For the most part, she's okay. There's some scenes they do mess up here and there. It reminds me of the Obi-Wan, oddly enough, Ewan McGregor, because the Obi-Wan series, where you don't have enough room, I guess, for the shot or whatever. You need children to run hurriedly from danger, and it just looks like they're running in place. It's not very well shot. There is a little bit of that here for this girl. And it's like, oh no. But it attempts to be a celebration of that film. It's acknowledging that it's completely dependent on it. So you get the memorabilia payoffs here and there. And gee, where do you think Jack Torrance is? So there is that. They get the recast characters to resemble the one, but they didn't use any CGI or anything to make them, to paint Jack Nicholson's face on him or anything like that, or Shelley Duvall on Wendy and so on. But nevertheless, it plays out and so I can appreciate the sort of comic book like elements to it. But it's nowhere near as strong a film as that, and it's just sort of, I don't hate it. I don't mind it too much. It is an interesting attempt to marry the two stories, and it kind of reaches the end that was the original story, but now it's like years later, so it marries the Kubrick and King approaches as best it can. And more, but it does really flesh out and explain what this is all about and what it is. There is no doubt that this is involving psychic powers and the supernatural of the dead and so on. And maybe it ran a little too long, I guess, here and there, but it's just sort of okay. If you just... Yeah, you just for a curiosity want to see it. It's better than the TV miniseries that King insisted on doing. That he was going to show you what his Shining was, what it was supposed to be, and it's like, oh, you should have left it alone. But apparently, King gave his praise to the sequel in that. The director's choice was to basically marry the two rather than just completely ignore the Kubrick film, which is kind of, he like, this is impossible, you got to do this. And of course the visuals of Overlook and everything certainly fits in with it and ties it in. So it's a nice attempt. I don't know that I don't think it succeeded. It certainly doesn't come anywhere near of the power of the original Shining film, but it's okay. It's okay.